friends, it's Gloria and welcome back to another video. Today is going to be an April TBR, or in other words, the books that I hope to read in the month of April. Really a pile of possibilities. Who knows what will get read? A few probably for sure, some are maybes and some are probably nots, but I'm hoping to. And that's kind of the vibe right now. March, there was a lot happening, lots of readathons. There is one readathon I'm definitely participating in for April, which I'll mention in a bit. But besides that, I kind of just want to mood read and just see what happens. But without further ado, let's just jump into it. I'm going to start with the two books that are set in Ukraine that I'm really in the mood to read for and slash might be buddy reading. So The Last Green Valley by Mark Sullivan. Amanda from the Curly Reader kindly gifted me this beautiful copy. This is a World War II historical fiction set in Ukraine and has to do with kind of the interaction between the Germans and the Russians and the native Germans that were living in Ukraine during the time that the war broke out. I have not read Beneath the Scarlet Sky by this author, which is his well-known book. I have it on my shelves, want to get to it. But Amanda and I both started reading this in February. We decided it wasn't the time quite yet, so hope to pick it back up in April. It seems just very timely for everything that's happening now. Would love to get to it. And another book set in Ukraine and piggybacking off of middle grade March feels like the right time, and that is The Blackbird Girls by Anne Blinkman. This is a story about two girls who are friends right when Chernobyl happens in Ukraine, which is a big nuclear disaster where a nuclear plant exploded. And I've just heard incredible things about this one, so I really hope to pick it up and get to it in April possibly. So we have two books in Ukraine that I want to read, and I have two books that have to do with Russia. I mean, I think it goes without saying that of course my heart is with the people of Ukraine, and reading these books are not saying that I'm supporting Russia and what's going on. And so that goes without being said. But the book that I'm so excited to be buddy reading with Annie from Annie's Book Nook is Mastering the Art of Soviet Cooking. I mentioned this book in my 5-star predictions, and I already crossed one of those off the list I'll be talking about in my March wrap-up. And this is another one that I really am excited to be picking up. I've heard fantastic things. This is a memoir about food, and I'm sure the Russian experience, what it means to be in Soviet Russia. What does Soviet food look like? The story, the origins behind it, and the author's memoir through it all, the story that she has to tell. So I am excited. I will be probably listening to the audiobook of this one as well as pairing it with the physical book, and excited to be buddy reading. A newer release, one that is very out of my comfort zone, is Daughters of a Dead Empire by Carolyn Tara O'Neill. This is a young adult historical fiction fantasy set in Russia in 1918 amidst the Russian Revolution. I love this cover. I think it's gorgeous. I am slightly concerned about the fantasy element of it. The only kind of like Russian historical fantasy that I've read so far is The Bear and the Nightingale. I gave it 3 stars. I liked it, but it wasn't a favorite, and honestly the fantasy was just a bit much, too fantastical for me. I'm very curious where the story is going to go, but I would love to pick it up to see what I think about it. I don't dive into YA too often, but I pick it up here and there. And then another book that just feels very timely with everything that's going on is Ink Knows No Borders, Poems of the Immigrant and Refugee Experience. This is a collection of 64 poems from various writers. I don't believe any of the writers, or I'm not sure if any of them are Slavic of origin, but my parents were immigrants. They immigrated here from Ukraine, and right now there's a huge flood of refugees fleeing Ukraine, and so it just feels like a timely read. And even if the authors are not from Ukraine, they're still gonna have that refugee and immigrant experience that is relatable to. So anyways, I would just love to read this and see kind of how I feel about some of the poetry in here. I also don't read poetry too often. I dabble here and there, but this one just caught my eye and I'm really curious about it. The next one I'm also so happy to be buddy reading with Lindsay, and this is going to be The Gown by Jennifer Robson, a historical fiction set around the making of Queen Elizabeth II's wedding dress, the woman who is still now the Queen of England, and her marriage to Prince Philip. I'm excited to read this author for the first time. I'm excited to dive into a little bit of like royal historical fiction. We'll see how it goes, but I'm stoked. And this next one will be the last full-length novel that's on my TBR. I don't know if I'm going to get to it. This is definitely a maybe, but for some reason, every single time I look at my current bookshelf, I look at this book and I'm just like, I want to read it. I want to read it so bad. I'm so intrigued by what the story's about, and it is I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith. This is a classic at this point. I don't know too much of the synopsis, but basically this is a coming-of-age story about a family in England who's living in a castle, and there's stories from this family dynamics and about this one young teenage girl. And I really don't know any details about what happens. I haven't really even seen too many people talk about this one, but for some reason this one is just really calling to me every single time my eyes scan over it. I'm like, oh, I I want to read it. And I think that's also partly because, as I mentioned in my most recent videos, I'm going to be visiting the UK in September, and I'm just like really in the mood to read any books that are set in England, Ireland, or Scotland that have to do with like life in the countryside. I'm like really in the mood for all that. So I really hope to get to this one. It's really calling my name, so hoping it gets read. And finally, the last little stack of books that I really want to read in April are all picture books, and that is because the lovely Shelley Swearingen and Jack from Spreadbook Joy are hosting a picture book readathon called Picture This in April. I am new to picture books, and I'm definitely someone who believes picture books are books, as well as graphic novels, as well as comic books, novellas, poems, and I don't even have kids, but I'm like just so excited to jump into a few more picture books, and I promise it's not because I want my books read numbers to grow. I just honestly have found some joy reading picture books in the past few months, and I also have not really read any of the classic picture books, so I thought this readathon would be the perfect time. There are 6 word prompts that are very open-ended and can be interpreted in any way, and so I just took a browse through a lot of like must-read picture books, and I'm really curious about how these go. The first is to read a book that's green, so I decided to pick up The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. I've actually never read Shel Silverstein, and I've never read this book. I might have been read picture books as a child, but really my parents didn't speak English or read English too well, so if they were reading me anything, they were probably Russian picture books and not necessarily English language books. So I really haven't read any of them. And also, I don't know what any of these are really about. I mean, I can guess based on like the title, but I don't know what the synopsis is. But we'd love to get this one off the list. The other color prompt is to read a book that is red, and I decided to pick up The Story of Ferdinand by Munro Leaf. And I just think this cover is beautiful. What a beautiful book. Picture books have amazing cover and design and art. I mean, that makes sense because the majority of them are pictures, but yeah, I just think this one is lovely. Another one of the prompts is to read a book about home, and I just decided to go for the obvious and looked up a picture book that was titled Home, and I really just went for this one because of the cover, and it talks about all of the different homes that people can live in or that animals can live in. I don't know, but I just thought it was really cute. Another prompt is the word space, whatever that means to you. I decided to go with Goodnight Moon because moon, and there's stars and a moon on the cover. This is like the book that I've seen a lot of people gift at baby showers, so excited to give that one a try. Another prompt is friendship, and I picked up We Found a Hat by John Klassen. I think that this is a very fun little cover. It's very quirky to me, and I really just looked up picture books that have to do with friendship, and this one was mentioned. I've seen this book shelving at the library. I've shelved it many times because it's been checked out a lot, and I always thought this cover was super funny and super cute, so I'm excited to see what it's all about. And the final word is quiet, and I picked up The White Cat and the Monk, and I think this is also about friendship between a cat and a monk, but also monks lead quiet lifestyles, so it kind of fit with that. I honestly just picked it up because there's a cat in the picture, and right now my life is all about my cats. There's a flea problem, there's just cats happening in my life right now, so cats are just on the forefront of the mind. And then finally, I just checked this out because I just know that this is a must-read picture book. Blueberries for Sal. It doesn't necessarily fit any of the prompts, but I just know this is a must-read picture book, and I thought I would see what it's all about because I've never read it before. So those are some picture books that I really hope to read, and I'm very thankful that there is a picture book readathon. I think that is definitely a space in BookTube that's very niche and maybe not totally recognized by BookTube at large, but I'm glad for these two lovely ladies for creating this space, and I think it's gonna be really fun, and I'm excited to find some picture books that maybe I'll love and I will look forward to reading my future children someday. So anyways, those are some of the books that I hope to get to in the month of April. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and supporting this channel. I appreciate you all, and I will see you guys in another book video soon. Bye!